Refugee influx into Greece continues despite the deportation of asylum seekers from the country to Turkey, which began on Monday under an EU-Ankara deal. Greek coastguards rescued 173 refugees off Lesbos Island. The asylum seekers, including children and a disabled woman, were brought to a makeshift camp, which was nearly empty after a group of its residents were sent back to Turkey earlier in the day. More than 200 people were sent on boats from the Greek island of Lesbos and Chios as part of a controversial agreement between Ankara and the European Union. The first day of deportations included Pakistani refugees. Officials say more people will be deported to Turkey in the coming days. Jerome Hughes is a correspondent who joins us from Brussels to shed more light on this. Jerome Hughes, do you think when the EU looks at this day, they think if they made a wise investment of $3 billion or not?
Well, to use the old cliche, Cava, that remains to be seen, because it may turn out that there's egg left on the face of the European Union, or perhaps Turkey, or perhaps both. It just depends on how this actually works, because of course the EU in real terms is committed to many things for Turkey, for Ankara, in terms of funding of up to €6 billion. Also, you know, to speed up the accession talks, because Turkey wants to become a member of the European Union, and also to allow sort of free travel within the Schengen area for Turkish citizens within the European Union. That's all on the table, but that's predicated on this actual deal working. What the European Union wants to see is the flow of, as it calls them, illegal migrants or refugees or asylum seekers. Many different terms are being used, but they want to see the flow stop, and they see Turkey as the key to that. So if this situation works, then Turkey will get everything it wants. I did an interview with an expert a few weeks ago who said that Turkey claimed that Turkey was purposely turning a blind eye to the smugglers, saying that basically the security forces in Ankara, they know who these smuggling gangs are. These smuggling gangs are earning up to €2 billion per year in terms of bringing refugees across to Greece, to the European Union, but that Ankara was purposely turning a blind eye to them because it wanted the crisis to continue, because it gave it much more leverage and bargaining when it comes to trying to get more out of the European Union. So if all of that is true, it's a very cynical move. While you have the vast majority of people trying to get into the European Union, they are genuine Syrian refugees. And you've got Amnesty International claiming that it has proof that on average each day Turkey is pushing back around 100 Syrian refugees back across the border into Syria, which breaks international law. So you have all of these claims being made. Save the Children is another rights group. It's describing the deal that has been struck between the EU and Turkey as inhumane. You have people arriving onto Greece. They're not being given correct information. There's all sorts of language barriers. There's apparently not enough staff there to sort of make the whole process work, and people are left in limbo, and then they find themselves being put back onto a boat and brought back to Turkey. Now, as you mentioned, but I mean, this is the first day, so we'll need to see how the statistics pan out over the coming weeks, because it's a very complicated situation. As you mentioned, Cava, the first day, you know, the majority were Pakistanis that were brought back to Turkey. So obviously, in a situation like that, they wouldn't be classified as having a genuine case for asylum, because they're not coming from, they're not being terrorized or coming from a war-torn country. So the criteria for them to be granted refugee status, you know, they couldn't fill that criteria. But it'll be very interesting to see how many people slip through the net and are pushed back to Turkey, where the rights groups say Turkey is not a safe country for genuine refugees to be brought back into. But how many genuine refugees will be brought back in there, and what will happen to them in the coming weeks and months? Will EU countries accept an equal number to be resettled in the European Union? So many unanswered questions. It's a very messy situation, and it'll be very, very interesting to see how it pans out.
Yeah, the next question I want to ask you, I don't mean it in any sarcastic way, but I'm wondering if there was a warranty on this, or a guarantee from the EU to Turkey in terms of the way that Turkey is going to perform when it comes to doing its end of the bargain. Because, as you said, today's the first day. I would think that there would be some kind of agreement, like a trial period to happen, to see if, if Turkey's going to hold its end of the bargain up. Do you think there was an agreement to that effect?
I would imagine so, because up until now, Turkey has had the European Union over a barrel on this issue to a certain extent. But now, in a certain way, the European Union has Ankara over a barrel, because Ankara will not get everything that was agreed unless this deal actually works. And so that's why it'll be interesting to see. Of course, there's a lot of skepticism that the deal will work, or that this whole thing will sort itself out, because everything that was agreed previously, don't forget, this is not the first EU-Turkey deal. The last one was just completely ignored. Even deals and agreements that have been reached within the European Union itself have not been implemented and have not been fulfilled. And so there's a great deal of skepticism that this deal, which, as I say, the rights groups are very unhappy with, but there's a lot of skepticism that it will actually work out. And that's why I say it'll be very interesting over the coming weeks to see what happens. But in the meantime, we cannot forget that there's a human cost to all of this, that you do have so many genuine Syrian refugees who really need support and international help, and particularly help from the European Union. And the question is, will they actually get it finally?
Thank you for that. We appreciate Jerome Hughes, correspondent there from Brussels.